Welcome back to another episode of the Mind Mountain podcast. This is the podcast that delves deep into the mental performance side of mountain biking, interesting guests from across our sport so that you guys, the listener, can have more fun out on the trails more often. Today, I'm stoked to be joined by Matt Lowell. No stranger to the podcast, Matt is a friend of mine and industry colleague. He's a mountain bike operations specialist, instructor, guide, and many other things. We met around 7 years ago when we were both working with the legends down at Endless Biking in North Vancouver. From that moment forward, I've been fascinated with Matt out-of-the-box thinking and the creative lens he views life, mountain biking, and experiences through. From Endless Biking, Matt has moved to his homeland, Scotland, where he's now the operations specialist and a global guide with H+I Adventures, where he gets to travel the world on two wheels and help many others do the same. Today, we're going to dive into his journey, talk about what he loves most about riding in Scotland, and we're also going to give you a behind-the-scenes look at our upcoming Scottish mountain bike expedition in September. Let's get into it. Matt, welcome back.
Nice. Yeah. Thanks, Jake. It's good to join you and jump on the podcast. So, yeah,
man. Super stoked to kind of pick up where we left off. Our last podcast was 3 years ago, which seems crazy. Time flies, eh?
Definitely. Yeah, for sure. Blink of an eye. Yeah.
And lots of big changes in your life and in your work, which we're going to get into. But I'd love to kind of start with something you said to me before you actually moved to Scotland. We were in North Vancouver working there, and lots of people are asking you, hey, Matt, what's your plans? Where you're off to next? And it kind of stood out. You were very intentional around your language. You said, we're moving to Scotland as opposed to we're moving back to Scotland. And it kind of stood out to me as like this opening up of a new chapter you're excited about, as opposed to like going back and repeating something you've done before. So to build this into a question, I want to know, how important is the intentionality around the language we use? And how does that help shape our experience on and off the bike?
Yeah. I mean, thinking back to living in North Ireland, sort of, my now wife, Lizzie, and I've been in Vancouver for sort of 8 and a bit years. So it was interesting and sort of pretty big change to move to Scotland and move back over here. So, I think it was a bit of a mental shift to make, and a big decision. We'd become Canadian citizens and everything. So we're sort of like fully invested there and wanted to move back, be closer to family and sort of, back to lots of friends and things over here too. So yeah, I think the idea of that language that we were sort of looking to use at that time was to make it sort of set right for us. For me, the idea of moving back felt like, I don't know, people were asking like, oh, are you moving back to Scotland? And it was just a bit like, well, like, I suppose, but really, like, for us, it's like moving to Scotland, where we're sort of looking at it as a new country, in a sense, like, where are we going to live? Where do we want to be? What sort of life do we want to shape for ourselves there, rather than moving back to Glasgow or back to Edinburgh for Lizzie sort of way. So yeah, I think like we were quite intentional on that, and intentionally wanted to move to the Highlands and change where we were in Scotland, just to sort of make it a new chapter, as you're saying. So it was pretty cool. And I think, for like the intentionality of the language for me, like, just made it feel more exciting and a step forward, essentially. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. It fascinates me how things as little as like the words we use can really shape the experience and shape what we get out of there. And it does, like, moving back feels like a downgrade, right? Moving here feels like this upgrade, and exciting, feel like you said.
Definitely.
Really cool. It kind of reminds me of, like, to bring it to mountain biking. Sometimes if we maybe have a little bit of a setback or something like that, we can be like, oh, I'm back riding blue trails again. I'm just riding easy trails. But we can also say, I'm having lots of fun going fast on easy stuff lately. It's like we're riding the same trails, but it's completely different lens we're looking through.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it's like, it's just tapping into like how it makes you feel. Like, you know, if you're saying, oh, I'm back to riding blue trails, and that's sort of making you feel inside like, you know, dying, or it's making you feel like, oh, a bit bummed about it. Like, yeah, definitely changing the semantics of it and looking at it through a different lens completely can change, yeah, how you're looking at your own writing and looking at yourself. Like, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, no, for sure.
It's been really inspiring watching your journey, and I guess like this new chapter unfold since you left Northfan now. So the other part of that intentionality was like, yeah, we want to move to the Highlands to be closer to nature, to mountain biking, to all the things we've grown to love here in BC.
Yeah,
You also said, hey, I'd really love to work for this particular company, H+I Adventures.
yeah, yeah, no, for sure. I mean, followed H&I for a long time, and you know, I think it's quite amazing, the sort of network of guides, the number of trips, the sort of different destinations. So absolutely, I think you know, and it being a Scottish company, you know, it's a Scottish company based that way up in the Highlands. It's quite interesting, just being like, what's going on there? Who is this? So,
Mm.
uh, yeah, absolutely. You know, when I was moving back over, I reached out. Um, well, actually, the first time I met Ewan and Kat was like 3 years before that. Actually, it was over on holiday, you know, back in Scotland, and we were traveling up and around, heading over to the west coast, and was passing through Inverness and thought, right, I may as well stop and chat the door, say hello, see what's going on. And just so happened it was around about lunchtime, and Ewan was heading out for a lunch ride, so managed to jump on and go for a lunch lap, and that was pretty cool, just to get on trail and
Mhm.
see what it's all about. And that sort of, yeah, planted the seed a little bit. So when I was moving back over, I thought, hey, may as well reach out, sort of say hello, give a bit of a story of who I am, what I've done. And yeah, I think luckily for me, it was good timing as well. We managed to sort of jump in and sort of take up a sort of pretty multifaceted role there at H&I. And then from since there, the past 3 years, things have got a little bit more focused just into on the operations, sort of behind the scenes of it all, as well as a bit of guiding here and there. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing, man. I'm so stoked with how it's all worked out for you. And it's really cool to hear like that. It's like a relationship building, isn't it? Earlier on, like, oh, we'll just hop in because you never know what will come of this in the future.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's I mean, mountain bike guiding and mountain bike experiences, it's obviously a like growing industry. It's expanding, but it is also still pretty niche. I can't imagine there's too many other places like
Yeah.
HMO for you to go and work in that particular area of Scotland if that
No.
one didn't work out. So I'm curious, was there any sense of like pressure of like, oh, I really want to work for this one company. I've got to make this work. Or do you kind of just set your intention, your desire, and then let the universe figure out the how?
Yeah. I don't know. I suppose it probably went a little bit more the universe version, like version of that. I think, yeah. I mean, yeah. I don't know. Didn't feel any, like particular pressures coming back over. Like we were, um, yeah, as we were saying, we're sort of making this leap back. You know, moving to Scotland and just sort of open to things, and we were just. It was a little bit like moving to Canada, really. Like we were pretty like turned up with a suitcase, and we are like, what's going on? And went from there. But you know, obviously with you know family and everybody over here, it's a little bit of a bit more of a safety net of everything. But yeah, I think it was you know quite um quite focused in the sense of reaching out. It's like, look, you know, this is who I am, this is what I want to what I'd like to do. And you know, it was real. It was like, well, actually happening, like we're actually moving back, we're going to be living here, we're going to do this sort of thing. So um makes it a little bit maybe easier from that side of things to make to see that picture. So yeah, maybe it's just painting that sort of vision for somebody. It's like, this is how I can help and what we can do. Yeah.
I love it. And from a mountain bike's perspective, obviously lots of changes there as well. You'd spent the better part of a decade riding the steep, tight technical trails on the North Shore in BC.
Yeah.
Moving back to Scotland, what has that journey been like as a writer? Is there anything you've learned in BC that's really helped open up your experience now writing in Scotland?
Yeah. I mean, I think the whole time being in Canada is amazing. Like the writing, the trails, the wildlife, the landscapes, everything is sort of so amplified and epic. It's easy to it would have been easy to move back to Scotland and sort of see things as a bit of a downgrade in terms of elevation and grandeur and everything. But I think Scotland, as I was away for so long, best part of a decade, as you were saying, like Scotland had changed a lot. There's a lot of trail associations that have started. There's a lot of sort of buzz around mountain biking in Scotland, and I think there is a totally different landscape, mountain biking landscape anyway, than when I left. So I think that was exciting for me to come back and be like, "Whoa, this is cool!" Like, and there was also a lot of areas of Scotland I hadn't explored on a bike. So from riding in BC, like definitely progressing as a rider, like being able to ride trails way more comfortably, ride everything. Like moving back to Scotland, it was cool to be able to think like I'll be able to, yeah, just pick off trails and go and ride wherever. Really, like,
Was there anything, I know like when I first went back to Australia to visit family after spending time here in BC, I think it was about 3 years. I
yeah,
kind of went back with this attitude of like, oh, I'm going to be all over the trails in Australia now.
yeah,
Then I found actually like the dusty, loose flat corners kind of caught me out and caught me by surprise. And it was like a little bit of an ego check for me. I'm
wow,
like,
yeah.
it's still harder just in its own way.
Definitely, it's completely different riding, and that's the thing. I mean, certainly in Scotland, we have a mixture of man-made, purpose-built sort of trail center stuff, which depending on where you are, can be super steep, super gnarly, bit like the shore or Squamish or wherever. But we also have big mountain, all-day, big adventure riding, which is completely different. If you're out for, I don't know, 6-7 hours and you're on a sort of natural hiking, biking trail, it can be super tiring. And then you put the weather in on that and everything, the midges, everything on top, it becomes a real challenge. And totally different type of riding. So yeah, it's cool. It's a totally different challenge.
Yeah, I love it. And then talking about like the mental skills, I guess there's definitely going to be some crossover there. You're still challenging yourself on two wheels on mountain bikes. But do you find any different challenges that come up, perhaps more related to like the endurance or the remoteness, or I guess there's different risks that come up as well that come with that?
I mean, I think it's interesting. Like, we've had conversations in the past, like thinking about sort of visualization and using that to help you compare what you've written in the past to maybe what's standing in front of you in terms of like a feature. But maybe, that also relates to the idea of like a big day out. It's like, well, what have I done in the past? Like, how have I prepared for that? Am I fit enough? Do I have all the gear? Do I have like everything in? Like, am I capable of looking after myself for a whole day out on the hill and more? If you were in the situation you're needing rescued or something like this. But I think visualizing what you've done in the past, visualizing what you're about to do, and going through that quite meticulously, for me anyway, helps me feel way more comfortable with it. And just having a solid plan which you can believe it's like, that's gonna work. It's,
Mm.
as well as plan B's, plan C's. Yeah.
It's such a sound approach. And again, that intentionality really comes into it as well. Like, what do I want to happen here?
Yeah.
So you can see it first. And you almost answered my question there, I guess, with the plan Bs and plan Cs. But I was going to ask, like, okay, so we spend a lot of time being really intentional making our plan. What happens when things go south and that plan doesn't quite work out the way we wanted it to?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it's just about being adaptable, and open to that. Like, Certainly at H+I Adventures, we're very clear with that. It's an adventure, like it's literally in the name. So we're going to need to be a team, and we're going to need to sort of work together and adapt and change. It's interesting challenge. I think maybe before working more like really specifically in sort of coaching, you're going in with a pretty solid lesson plan, and of course you would need to sort of adapt and change if things were going to, whatever's happening. But I think it was maybe a little bit more rigid. There's less room for within a 2-hour lesson than a week-long adventure for things to change. So you just got to be adaptable and read the play, read the room, read what's happening actually in front of you, and don't just continue on with the plan if it's not actually working. Like, make the change and be okay with that. And which is where I think it's really interesting for guests, for riders joining us. It's like it's real. Then it's not just a cookie cutter adventure which they're coming along and moving through. They're actually maybe part of that decision making, or they see that it's going to change, and it's a real organic thing. It's quite authentic.
Yeah, that's really cool. And then I guess the guests get to help shape the experience, and then it's going to be a better experience for them. Versus this is the itinerary, this is what we must do today.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I think it's part of that, and they might not necessarily make the decision of like, all right, well, let's go ride this trail. You might not give them options like that, but it certainly might be, well, look, like, we can all see we're all really tired. So what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna tweak this route to make it better for us. We're gonna go and ride this instead. So it's more subtle than just like straight up decisions. But I think looking and understanding what's actually happening, weather-wise, skill-wise, fitness-wise of the group, and adapting to make the best itinerary.
Yeah, it's definitely like a mark of a good guide, isn't it? Someone who can sense where the group is at and deliver the right experience for where they're at in each moment.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's it's like, maybe we want to extend the day out and go longer, go and do something extra. Or is it like we all actually want to get down and go to the pub and have a beer and, soak up the landscape a bit rather than, pushing too hard.
Yeah, that can be an important one on multi-day trips for sure. Hey, like knowing when to call it so that we're still got energy for the next day and the next day.
Yeah.
Tell me, how many different countries is H+I running experiences in now?
Yeah, I mean, we've got around, best part of 30 or so trips around the place. Some multiple different in one location. But it's a whole network across both hemispheres, right around the calendar. And right from Yukon way up there to New Zealand, to Colorado, all the way over to Europe and stuff. So it's network.
Pretty mental. And I'm curious, like since you've been there working, I know you've been to Morocco, you've been guiding in Colorado, perhaps some other places as well. I wanted to ask, is there any lessons you've learned from guiding or expanding your guiding to like global, different places perhaps you've never been before, versus being mainly focused in one area like we were when we were working in North Canada?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think for me, that sort of journey and that change from working at Endless as a coach, and we're guiding as well, but definitely more focused on skill progression to now. I think we're definitely thinking about the experience more, like rather than a single day of riding with somebody on the North Shore to multiple days in a row. You're looking at that experience across a whole week, which I think is really quite different. And I think that what that opens up as a guide is it takes the focus away solely from the trails and riding to the culture, to the foods, to the sort of bigger picture of like why are we here? Like what are we getting from this as an actual like human experience? Rather than just like focused on trails and riding and skill progression as such. I think it's really cool that certainly comes into it, but I think it's broader as well. So so for me, I think it's what I've learned is that you really need a local guide, like the local person coming in. So we work with the network of guides around the globe from in all of our destinations. So Pancho and Daniel down in Chile, and Erin's just completed a trip there in New Zealand, and it's really cool because those are the people who bring that that local knowledge, that local skill, that local sort of interest into each trip. So yeah, I guess it's like collaborating with those people rather than necessarily teaching them anything or saying like this is how we do it. It's like using their knowledge.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And it is like, I think the same, it's an essential part of creating these global experiences is having the local guide there. And I guess you get to play a pretty cool role because so often you're going to perhaps Morocco or Colorado and you're working with a local guide there.
Yeah.
Like home for you in Scotland, you get to be that local guide.
Yeah.
That's the perfect segue. We've obviously teamed up the Mind Mountain and H+I Adventures this year for an experience of our own that we work together to curate for the Scottish mountain bike expedition that's happening in September. I wanted to ask you, like, what are you most excited about with this expedition? Because there's lots, right? We've been pretty stoked putting this one together. What's the thing that stands out most for you?
Yeah, I think I don't know. I'm really excited to see the riders, like your riders, those that are working with you and coming on the trip from through yourself, getting a taste of that week-long experience. Like it's going to be really cool, as well as the combination of a bit of coaching, a bit of really sort of focused, purposeful skill development, and how we can apply that into the landscape as we're on these bigger adventure rides later in the week. I think that's a really cool combination, and I think you can, I'm excited to see how, from working with you in the past, like how we can sort of tailor that to the group, and be really specific early in the week on where we do it and like how we can sort of make the most of those days to maximize the fun later in the week. Because we've got some really cool options of rides and things over on the West Coast, and it would be really cool to see riders just having the best time and enjoying like full big days out. Like, yeah, it's good.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm really excited for this one because it does have a little bit of a different feel to some of our other expeditions that are perhaps more like shuttles or enduro bike park focused. This one's like a more of a bigger adventure riding focus in terms of getting out onto some natural terrain, and we'll be getting our heart rates up. We might be going through some muddy bog, bike on our back, but then we'll also be getting kind of big long descents that feel endless as well. So really owning our term, I guess.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think the first couple days will be a little bit more, and it's interesting, like comparing it to like BC standards of, you have Whistler and the bike parks and stuff. It's definitely, not like that in terms of the machine built sort of stuff. We'll have, but the first few days will be definitely more hand built, purpose built trails, where we'll have some really cool features and we'll look at that sort of skill development on those. But still, I think people will probably find that it's like still really natural. Like they're like, what, this is your bike park? It's like, yeah, I think it'll still feel really natural to people. But and then it'll just go get amplified from there. So over to the West Coast where it's real big mountain riding. Yeah.
Fantastic. And yeah, we have kind of put our heads together and designed a custom itinerary for this one. you guys obviously run like a bunch of different mountain bike experiences in Scotland already.
Yeah.
So I guess I kind of came to you with the scope and with, hey, this is the type of rider that's going to be coming on this trip. Let's
Yeah.
get really intentional and design an itinerary. So we kind of, I guess we planned it out with that general flow in mind of let's build up the rider's skill set early on so that they can get the most out of those big days in the Highlands.
Yeah. I think, yeah, that's exactly it. I think there's, scope for all that to happen. And I think it's interesting for me, like being able to just like come at this with a bit of a blank slate and be like, right, where would we want to go? Right, Jake wants to do a trip. Like, what are the best places to go, best places to ride, that have options? And I think depending on exact riders that join, we'll be able to tweak stuff and make it sort of ideal. But yeah, it was pretty cool opportunity to have a bit of a blank slate. And essentially the both of us will have bike rentals available, we'll have a van, we'll have trailer, we have accommodations, and everything else in between is just good times. Yeah.
Exactly right. It's like always my goal with these expeditions is like, first and foremost, let's create it like by riders for riders, as in where would we want to go if we're in Scotland together for a week. And then also to take all of the thinking out of it. So that it's like, once you're on this expedition with us, all you've got to think about is your tires gripping the dirt. That's it. And other than that, we're going to help you, hopefully, have a few new tools to help you do that even better. Kind of brings me to our next question. We're really stoked with the group that's building and the people we've got on that trip. So we've been having a couple of chats around like, okay, where do we think we're best focusing in terms of like what skills that these riders going to need?
Yeah.
So for the people we've got booked on, they are from places that have purpose-built mountain bike trails, perhaps bike parks, stuff like we're riding here in BC. What do you think are going to be some of the biggest skill sets we're going to need to perhaps tune up and sharpen to be able to find some flow in the natural trails in Scotland?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, everyone's sort of unique and different, but I think if you had to sort of boil it down and think about riding here in Scotland, I always think about trying to be able to be aware of the terrain ahead, so much so that you can anticipate things to find flow. Like, once we're onto some natural rocky torrid trails, there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of edges, there's a lot of rocks, there's a lot of different surfaces, and it's not, it's no way smooth surface riding. So being able to scan the trail and think about what's coming up in order to anticipate and deal with that is probably number one, I would say. But then, I think, being able to also manage like real slow speed skills as well. Like once we're on some slower, tighter sort of nagery sort of sections of trail, being able to master those slow speed skills so that you can balance and things is cool. But yeah, I would say, getting our eyes up, looking ahead, making it smooth, making the rough stuff smooth.
Yeah, amazing. Another one that's kind of popping into my mind here is perhaps like some pressure management, some wheel lifts, perhaps some hops that you find yourself doing a lot of.
Yeah, I mean, here in Scotland, we're infamous. We have the infamous water bars and drainage across the trail. So where you might have, say, certainly thinking back to like the climb trails in North and Squamish, where the drainage is all under the trail and there's so much work done. I think here in Scotland, because these trails are mostly designed and made for hiking and before biking anyway, and before that, it could be ancient, Drovin Road or something like this. But I think, the drainage is much more primitive in the sense it's a big water bar. So that's like maybe a foot to 2 feet across, and it could be the same deep. And being able to, front wheel lift, rear wheel lift, get moving across those without having to stop for every 10-20 meters is pretty key, especially on the climbs. I think on the descents you have a bit of flow and we can hop over things, and it sort of tends to work. But on the climbs, if you can, master that, it's going to make your climbs a lot more fun.
Yeah, fantastic. That's a cool point because I think so often we think about skills for the descent,
Yeah,
that it can also be really rewarding to work on your skills for the climbing so that you can actually just like stay on the bike and find that flow in a sense of like getting from the bottom to the top without getting off your bike 10 times.
yeah, for sure. I think, I think there's definitely some big climbs. We'll be hike biking. There'll be some sections that are not bikeable, so it will be bikes on the back and hiking for half an hour, 40 minutes or so, here or there. But I think, for sure, like focusing on the climb, we'll spend what will feel like a long period of time climbing. So certainly enjoying it as much as we can and not getting frustrated. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Do you have anything you like to tell yourself when you're out for a big mission, perhaps stuck on one of those climbs for a while?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Not sure. I think just enjoying the view, enjoying where we are. Like I think it's pretty special landscape, and to be able to be there on bike, where it's not common, I would say. Like there's a lot of riders and a lot of people out there, but the landscape's so vast that it's really not common that we'll come across other riders. So I think it's a pretty unique, cool place to get on a bike. So just enjoying it and enjoying the view.
Yeah. Getting back to nature, being present. Love it. Do you have any, like, I guess, like stories of descents or favorite rides you've done in Scotland? We've talked to here a little bit about the climbing and the hard work on the way up. I'd love
Yeah.
to just get inside your mind of like, what's it like to get down some of these rugged descents in Scotland?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, thinking about our trip, like being over in Torridon, it stands out as a real epic place to get out on your bike. And there's a descent, Achnashell descent, which we'll likely ride, and there's a section above that which is we may ride, we may get up and round, but I think certainly I was out there last summer, and it was a really, really hot day, beautiful blue sky, hot temperatures for here anyway, and we were pedaling up into the mountains, and then it's like 40-minute hike up, and then we sort of kicked right and you continue on. And once you're up there, it's really interesting, the sort of quartz rock, quite shaly at points, and then there's a last little zigzag hike a bike for another half an hour, and you pop into this sort of hanging sort of little valley up in the mountains. And that was lunch. That was a lunch spot. So cool, just hanging out. And it's interesting as you can see hikers and climbers and stuff in the mountains around. And sure enough, a guy came over and just chatting away. And it's interesting to hear about him and his story and what he was doing that day. And just spend some time chatting to these people in the mountains that you wouldn't necessarily come across. But all of a sudden you've got something in common. You're standing there in the same place. So that's cool. And then from there it's like massive descent. You're descending maybe best part of an hour at least, heading down, sort of shaly rock, and then sort of a mixture of fixed rock with loose rock in between. As well as some pretty chunky steps and things like this, which they're all rollable, but certainly, requiring attention. Yeah.
Right. That's one of my favorite things about riding as well, is those rides where they are technical enough to require all of your attention, but like you can't not be present. And that for me is almost like a gateway to getting into those fantastic flow state rides where you're not thinking about anything at all.
Yeah.
Apart from just taking in the experience riding your bike.
Yeah. No, for sure. And there's definitely, lots of that in store for sure, where it's it's an amazing landscape. You do want to stop and look and take it in, but once you're on trail and you're riding down, it's gonna focus the mind and make you keep focused.
Yeah, fantastic. Another one of the things I'm most excited about with this one is this like such a rich culture and history that Scotland has. I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about how that weaves its way into the trails we ride and the places we'll be visiting.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's interesting. Our expedition over here in Scotland is going to do sort of um a loop around the Highlands. So we'll be up in Inverness first. We'll do some riding on the sort of local network of trails there as a warm up, and sort of setting the scene for the week, and sort of thinking about our collective goals as a group. And then we'll head over to the cairngorms where I live. We'll probably come and eat in the village where I live and stuff like that as well. And we'll ride the local trails here. It's a little bit more enduro focused. But the cairngorms themselves are really big, rounded, sort of glacial mountains. So it's interesting to see that part of Scotland. And then we'll head west. We'll head over towards Malig, and ultimately get over to Skye. And Skye as an island is pretty famous around the world. But the mountains on there, the Cuillin Mountains, are epic. We have the black Cuillins on one side and the red Cuillins on the other, and they're just steeped in mountaineering history. Way back, you would have had a lot of people climbing there before heading out into the Alps and even out further into Himalayas and things like this. So there's a lot of climbing history. As well as even going further back into real history of Scotland. And then in Torridon, there's a lot of culture to be said and seen and discovered as well. So it's really, really cool. Before we sort of circle our way back to Inverness, where we'll head back sort of east a little bit, and we'll see that change in landscape as well, from the rugged sort of towering mountains of the west back to more arable sort of rolling landscape of around Inverness. So lots to discover.
Yeah, legend. Really cool. Like, I feel like bikes are like the perfect excuse to go traveling. And then you get all of these other like bonuses along the way, like the history, the culture. One of the things I'm really excited about, we've got, I think it's night 5 or night 6, we're actually going to be doing a homestay with some local Scottish people, and I believe one of them is a chef.
Totally.
Cooking a local dish for us. I think that's going to be a really cool touch as well.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing. I think, as you say, like a lot of the culture comes through in the people that we meet, the food that we'll eat as well. And it's different for different people. Like, just, I don't know, whether it be pedaling on a sort of access track to get into the mountains, and you're passing the local crofter with the guys looking after his cattle or whatever. And it's like, it's just interesting just to see how these people are living. That particular guest house that we'll stay in, there will be, a chef that will cook up a home style sort of meal for us. And, depending on what's there seasonally, what sort of produce is available. But, it likely will be, venison that's come off the hills. So local produce sort of stuff that's interesting to sort of tap into and understand.
Yeah, fantastic. I'll tell you what, that venison's going to be some good fuel for the next day.
Yeah.
Speaking of wildlife, I know that's a question I've been getting from a lot of guests and potential guests. It's like, are we going to see a Highland cow, or are we going to see deer? Yeah, what are some of the wildlife we're common to come across on our rides?
Yeah, well, I think, down here in the cairngorms, we'll, depending on exactly where we end up with the group and stuff, we'll be in the forest. So, here there's it's pretty elusive to see, but the cairngorms is a stronghold for the capercaillie, and there's around 500 of these left in the national park here. So it would be really lucky to see one, but it's quite a unique ecosystem that will be in here, as well as lots of red deer, definitely some Highland cattle along the way for sure. So if you're into them, we can make that happen. And I think once we're over on the west coast, we'll, there's a multitude of things, from seagulls, seals, all this sort of stuff. And then, up in Torridon, it'll be likely that we'll see, red deer up in the mountains and stuff as well. So, Yeah, pretty epic. I think you've got a lot at your disposal over in BC in terms of whales and bears and all this and stuff. But then, yeah, in Scotland, it's pretty good as well.
Yeah, and I think special in its own way, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, definitely. That's good.
That's awesome, man. I'm very, very excited for this expedition. I think we were kind of chatting at the start of our conversation here off camera. For us, like personally, professionally, I guess as coaches and guides, this is kind of full circle for us. We did a lot of like coaching heavy rides, as you said earlier, at Endless Bike in there on the North Shore. Since you've moved to Scotland and started working for H+I, it's been perhaps like expanding your guiding skill set and doing a lot of like guiding focused rides.
Yeah.
Now this expedition, we get to combine the two.
Yeah, and that's what's really exciting, I think, for me. It's going to be a really unique blend, and something new for H+I as well. Bringing in somebody like yourself to come and do those sort of coaching elements, or taking the lead on that for sure. And I think it's interesting for yourself, like to come and sort of have that week-long experience. That's it's a journey in itself. There's to be some days that are big days that will push us, and then we might want to have a bit more of a chill day and just sort of how we flow through the week. But yeah, for me, I think it's, I miss that coaching as well. Like I do definitely miss getting out and, thinking of all the sessions we do on the shore with people, and the sort of, the feeling you get when someone is progressing, like progressing their riding through what you're telling them, what you're showing, what you're demoing. I think it's going to be really cool to sort of put a little bit of that into the trip. And hopefully once we're over on the West Coast and we're riding some of the trails out there, we're going to see people applying what they've learned with you in the past, as well as in those early days of the trip, and just maximizing the fun. Yeah,
I think that's it. You really hit the nail on the head with like the maximize the fun part.
yeah,
And that's the part I guess I'm most excited for, is not only helping people have this bucket list experience and ride trails they've dreamed of riding for years, but also be able to help them ride them better, be able to ride more of those trails, better have more fun on those trails, and then feel like they're going home a better rider for it.
yeah.
So
No, and it's not necessarily, big complicated sort of things that I think we'll be working on with people. I think it's sort of maybe could be a case of taking a step back, looking at foundational skills, and building that solid foundation to apply onto trails. It's not like we're riding, in Whistler Bike Park, we have big, massive jumps, big drops, these sort of features that it takes a lot to sort of build up to. It's very natural terrain. So, I think we can find flow through good foundations. Yeah.
definitely, I think it kind of stands out to me as like becoming a more well-rounded rider. Perhaps we're already riding some quite technical terrain or doing big jumps, things like this, like you say, that perhaps going back to basics and learning how to ride terrain that doesn't necessarily have huge consequences.
Yeah.
Quite technical to ride well will make you a better rider, and then be able to go back to BC or Australia or wherever your home trails are and ride them better as a result. That's what really gets me fired up.
Yeah, and and I think what will be new for people as well, like coming from BC, if they are, linking a bigger full day. You obviously have people out in the Chilcotins and things like this, but applying that style of ride onto some more technical terrain as well, like where you're in sort of big mountain terrain, but it's a full day experience, and there could be all sorts of weather coming at us. So, maybe there's a bit of learning there on that side of stuff too. Like, what do we actually need to be carrying? How are we packing for that? Like, how are we managing everything that comes with a full day out in the mountains? So, yeah,
that's
good.
another reason why I'm stoked to have you guys there, the local guides, to help guide all of us in like, what should we bring? How should we prepare?
Yeah.
They can be different. They're like you say, running a bike park day or just heading out for a ride where you may be only 1 or 2 hours from the parking lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
It can change pretty rapidly when we're up in the Highlands, can't they? So
Yeah.
make sure we're prepared. Now,
Yeah.
we were kind of comparing our calendars when we caught up the other day and saying, yeah, we've got all these trips going on and work rides, personal rides. And it's really motivating us to get out there in the winter months and make sure we're fit, make sure we're strong, sharpen our own skill sets. I think that's another thing that's cool for people that are coming on this expedition. It might not be till September, like, I don't know, 7 months from now. But it can
Yeah.
be a really good motivator, like knowing you have a trip in your calendar to get out and ride more and have something you're working towards.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. And it's motivating me, definitely. I think looking ahead to my season, there's, I'll be assisting our team of guides out in Morocco again, and then we'll be likely to be heading over to the Yukon, do a little bit of riding with the Yeti gathering over there, and then further down the line in September with this trip. So I think having that in the calendar for sure motivating me right now. We've got a bit of snow back on the ground and stuff here in the Cairngorms, but I think it's pretty cool to think like, okay, how are we preparing for that? Like technical wise, like just riding again back onto some of the terrain as well as sort of fitness wise, just getting the big miles in and just being comfortable with that.
Yeah. It's something I've realized over the years is really important, like just getting on your bike regularly. I find so often if we do kind of get stuck in that seasonal pattern of like we don't think about our bike all winter, we spend half the spring kind of like getting our riding legs back, getting our fitness up, building up that confidence again.
Yeah.
And if we can keep that consistency going, even if some of those rides are just, really simple rides, maybe in conditions that are snowy or really rainy that aren't ideal, we can get the spring and kind of hit the ground running because of that consistency.
Yeah. No, definitely. And that's the thing, like with H+I, we're so lucky to have an awesome network of trails, just sort of 20-minute climb or half an hour climb up at the back of the office. And it's really cool to be able to get out at, a lunch lap and get that mileage. It's not a massive climb, not a massive ride, but it's nice to have that consistency and then get out in personal time for some big stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know I share this ethos, but H&I kind of has they don't believe in mountain bike seasons.
Yeah.
Curated these experiences, in different hemispheres.
Yeah.
So that the mountain bikers can continue to ride all year round and continue to have these epic rides to look forward to. So I guess like the last thing we haven't mentioned is like why we chose September for our mountain bike expedition. There was quite a lot of thought that went into like, well, when are we going to do this? When's going to be the best time?
Yeah.
I can think of a couple of reasons, but I wanted to ask you, like, why do you think September is a great time to come mountain biking in Scotland?
Yeah. Well, and just to jump back there a little bit, it is interesting, that idea of like, when we run our trips, we do have a lot of people reach out. I'm sure you'll have the same, like, what, is that a good time to go to Scotland? And it's like, and it's absolute valid question, but it's sort of like, I think once we answer it, people gain trust in the sense that we've thought it through. Like a lot of people, it's like, we don't want to be going to whatever destination when it's sort of off season, whether it be too hot, heading to Morocco or, south of France, whatever. And, when it's too hot, but similar here in Scotland, we want to be picking our moments. The weather can be changeable for sure. It can be difficult to predict and give an exact, like, this is when it's going to be good. But I think, we focused in on September because we can have some really beautiful, bright days, temperature wise. Not necessarily going to be particularly hot, but it could be sort of we could be around about that sort of 20 degrees Celsius sort of mark, plus or minus sort of 5, and colder up in the mountains for sure. But I think what we're doing is avoiding the July, August Midgie season pretty well. So, if I was to think of a time to say to yourself, like, hey, come and visit, like September for sure would be jumping out there. It's a really busy month for operations here at H+I in Scotland. And we've sort of cherry picked the best time of year for sure. It's pretty good. It's nice to get in early and nail those dates. So
Right on. Well, thanks for giving us the top pick. For those that aren't familiar, what is a midgie?
yeah, so the midgie is like it's a very small little flying insect which come in their millions, and they'll it's not particularly sore when they bite you. It's just really, it can be very, very itchy, very irritating. So yeah, especially if you're changing the tube or plugging a tire at the side of the trail and there's like a gazillion midges biting you. It's nice to try and avoid. The nice thing is though, is if there's a breeze, it doesn't even need to be a strong wind, but a good breeze, they'll not be able to fly. So when we're up on the trails, likelihood we're going to avoid it. But if it's drizzly in the forest, for sure, yeah, you gotta. It's bring your grit for sure.
Fantastic. Well, I'm glad we're going to be avoiding them for the most part. That's awesome. What was I going to ask you here? Oh, the other, like, we talked about like Scotland and when's the best time to come to Scotland, but the other part of that thought process that went in there was also where are our guests coming from?
Yeah.
And when's a good time for them to be coming to Scotland? Because I know quite often if we're, say, here in BC in July, we're like, wow, that's peak summer. That's a really good time to ride in a mountain bike. I don't necessarily want to be going somewhere else when it's like, I've got a bike park here. So we also thought about, well, when are the shoulder seasons and when's the weather perhaps not as great for riding elsewhere? That came into the thought process as well. I know September can be really good here in BC, but it can also be really rainy as well.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that's the thing, is sort of trying to pick the best moment for someone's season, like when to fit this trip in. Being height of summer, crankworks, all this and stuff, there's lots going on. So yeah, missing out on that stuff to get over here can be hard to convince yourself. So yeah, for sure, September. You can get beautiful fall riding and and all that too, but once you start getting into those damp, long spells of solid rain for 2 weeks, it's maybe nice to get away and do something else. So no, it's good. And that's the thing, like, I think, if you look up just typical Google search, like best times to come to Scotland, it might be giving you answers of midsummer, because that's like, okay, the weather can be best. There's lots to see, lots to do. It's also the height of tourist season, so it can be really busy. So September, that'll be cooling down a little bit, and we'll actually get maybe a bit more of a chance to meet the locals in these tiny little villages we go to, and it's a bit more of an authentic sort of experience. So yeah, it's good.
Amazing. Yeah. And then if we look at the Southern Hemisphere, it's like September, they're not quite in their spring yet. And we're experiencing a lot of rainy weather. I love that. Yeah, we've got that local knowledge, like you say. It's not just a generic, like, when's the weather back in Scotland? We're looking at this multifaceted, like, approach to, like, finding the best time.
Yeah.
Great. This has been a fantastic chat. It's really cool just to dive into your head and find out, like, why you love mountain biking in Scotland so much. And I'm really excited to experience it myself and to help a group of riders experience that.
Yeah.
As we round out here, I'm going to leave you with one open question. What's one thing you're excited to see happen in the mountain bike industry over the next decade? Could be anything. It could be equipment. It could be experience related. And
it's interesting that you say the decade, like, because I've always talked about, as we moved to Scotland and meeting riders here, getting involved with the scene. I think I've always described Scotland as like maybe a decade behind Canada in the sense of all the trail associations and that trail building sort of thing. I think it's growing really rapidly and it's coming more and more, but I think I'm excited to see that continue to grow and expand and sort of catch up. I think it's it was pretty amazing to actually be in the midst of all of that, with the North Shore Bike Association and Circle and all this and stuff. And it's interesting to see that bubbling away and sort of becoming more legit, more professional. So yeah, I think I'm excited to see that happen, and just the continual sort of professionalism of the sport. I think it's cool that we're having people come on trips like this, like mountain biking, holidays, adventures, where they're valuing guides and valuing the input that a guide can have. I think that's a sort of measure of how the sport's becoming more professional. So yeah, that's probably it.
I love it. Yeah, it's really exciting, isn't it? Especially when we look back and think of like how far mountain biking as a whole has come in the last decade.
Yeah.
Another decade of growth, it's going to be off at the table in the best kind of way.
Where's it going? Yeah.
Awesome, Matt. Well, thanks so much for your time today. It's been great to dive deep into mountain biking with you.
Cool.
We'll see you in September.
Right on.
As I finish up here, if people want to find you, find H+I Adventures, where can they do that?
Yeah, best jumping on. We're on our website. You can jump on Instagram. Pretty active on there. So, yeah, we can leave the links and stuff in the comments and stuff. So, yeah, jump on there. Say hello.
Yeah, fantastic. And we'll also whack a link to the Scotland mountain bike expedition down in the description as well, if anyone wants to check that out. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you on the trails or on the next episode.
Epic. Cheers, Jake.